So I was thinking about this, right? How do we actually process? What is processing? I don't really know. Sometimes it feels easy to process and sometimes it feels hard. Sometimes I have no idea how to process what I'm feeling. Sometimes it's so overwhelming that you just don't really want to exist with that feeling anymore. And then there's times where it's like, yeah, it's not too bad. It's not a biggie, I can process that. But how exactly is it that we process them? And why does it work the way that it works to process them? From the perspective that I look at life from, right? I understand everything as energy, everything as frequency, everything as vibration, everything as an expression of the one source consciousness that is the creator of all things, the experiencer of all things, and the expressor of all things, right? So a tree is an aspect of God in that aspect of God, in that aspect of creator, the aspect of creation. The energies of infinite possibilities decided that it would become this specific type of tree. And every single one of those trees that are the same breed, species, maybe, behaves exactly the same, right? It grows exactly the same, it needs the exact same nutrients to thrive, but when they all grow and look different. They all express themselves differently, even though they're identical in energetical sense, right? So I see it the same with human beings and with each different species of animal. The human being, any skin tone, because they're still a human being. Any human being with any language, still a human being. It's the same thing. It's an expression of creation in that frequency, alright? It looks like we're different species, but we're still human. And each tree, even if it's a different species, has the same process of growth. It grows roots, it grows a trunk, and it grows branches and leaves, right? Even though each tree may need specific nutrients to be its best version of itself, right? If it's in its environment where those things exist, the tree thrives, and the trees can grow for however many years they can. I heard apparently that trees, the ones that keep growing, they don't die, they just get too big, and they're not stable, so they end up falling over, and that's why, like, because of the pressure of the wind blowing and stuff like that, apparently, right? I don't really know how accurate that is, but the point is, the trees need the sun, water, and earth. So heat, fire, earth, wind makes their roots stronger, makes them solidify, but also wind carries what? The oxygen, the carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, whatever it is, the CO2 that the trees absorb and then put out oxygen, right? So they use all four of the elements to grow, to thrive. All of them, not just one of them, all of them, all the different species, every single tree, right? If I'm not mistaken, this is the process. So if that's the case, when we look at human beings, it should have a similar process is not going to be identical, but the process is similar, right? So, what is a human being? Well, our body has a certain temperature, so it has heat. We need oxygen to continue living, we need water to continue living, and we are living from a material, earth, a physical thing. Like, we come from earth, we're on earth. When we die, we go back into earth. So we are of the material, the earth, the physical. We have the heat, the fire, yeah. We have the water inside of us because we're how much percentage water. And we also have the air, the oxygen. Every single one of us, right? Every single one of us has that. Cool. Now, when you look at frequencies, energies, and all of that stuff, right? How does one interpret that to a tree, to humans, to everything else? Well, if every single material thing in existence, every single solid thing that we think and feel is there, right? We experience it as it is there. I believe it is there because it is there. It's not to say that it's not real, it's to say that the way that it manifests into being real is from what? Moving, vibrating particles that are continuously moving, that are ever present, that change. So is that the energy, right? We can say that's the energy. That is the energy in everything. And if every single material thing has that same thing, that's the energy. So trees have the energy, we have the energy, the earth has the energy. The way that I understand this is, if you look at, so everything has its own electromagnetic field. It might not work exactly identical, but it's not the point of it working identically, it's the premise of it, it's the point of it. How does an electromagnetic field work? Why does it work the way that it works? Well, how does a magnet work? It has a negative and a positive, a push and a pull, like a contraction and expansion. Positive, negative, right? Happy, sad, angry, calm, conscious, unconscious, life, death, hot, cold, all of it has the opposite polarity. So to me, it shows a consistent thing of an electromagnetic field. Whether it's the case realistically or not, it's irrelevant to me. Why? Because it gives me a foundation to look at the reality from. And it's a solid foundation because it is reality showing itself to me. So with an electromagnetic field, it may seem stable, but it's constantly moving, just like energy. It's constantly circulating, it's constantly oscillating. Because if it wasn't, the field wouldn't exist. So it may seem like it's not being affected, it's not, doing anything, it's in this perfect balance, but as soon as you interfere with it, the balance is gone, it becomes wild, and it needs to find a way to rebalance itself. And the fact that it is an electromagnetic field, the electromagnetic field, just like a magnet, has its consistent flow. It's only when something interrupts the flow of it that ruins it, basically, that makes it go out of alignment, right? So I've used that premise, that foundational understanding, to attach it to everything basically. My emotions, my thoughts. You get stuck in thought loops. You can be in negative thought loops. How do you break a negative thought loop? One, by not thinking about it, being in the point where, so in a magnetic field, electromagnetic field, there's a center point where none of the energy is interacting with the center point, but it's consistently flowing around, let's say a donut shape, a toroidal field. It consistently flows around and around and around, up, down, in, out, up, down, in, out. Yeah, all the way around like a donut. So that part right in the middle is in between every single frequency that exists in that field, every single oscillation in that field. It can oscillate at whatever speed. There's always that space in the middle, and that space in the middle is almost interacting with the movement of the energy whilst also not interacting with it, because the center point is like the magnet that pulls the energy back in. It's like the awareness of the human being to some degree, but it's not at the same time. So what I found is the awareness that we have is the tool to bring balance to that electromagnetic field that we have. The electromagnetic field that we have is all different things expressed in the field. So I see it as energy come first, and then the physical expression comes second. So if our mind is the same free-willed, conscious, creating possibility of the creator of the world, of creator of all universe, of everything, right? We were made in God's image, they said. It doesn't mean we look like God. We have free will, they say. God, the creator, has infinite creative possibilities, and it is the conscious awareness of creation, but it's also the creation, the expression, the experience of the witnesser, right? You can imagine anything in the world, anything out of the world, anything in your head you imagine. You can imagine anything possible. You have the free will in your mind to create anything. You are infinitely the creator. You can create anything you want, right? So you have the free will. That's how I see it from that perspective. Well, when you have free will, that means you can think of all positive things or all negative things, but also nothing at the same time. The positive electromagnetic field, the negative electromagnetic field, and the center point of both the positive and the negative, that brings balance to both positive and negative. It doesn't get stuck in loops of positive or loops of negative. Now, why is this a thing of not getting stuck in them? Because how does a radio wave move? Like, how does a frequency move? When we see the heartbeat, it goes up and down. Like, we have all these ups and downs because it's like the expansion and the contraction, the push, the pull, the positive, the negative. So what goes up must come down, but what stays in the center doesn't need to move. So it's like learning to be in the center, learning to be the observer, learning to be in the present moment, not in the past or the future, right? Learning to stay centered within ourselves mentally and emotionally. Cool. Now that I've explained all of that, how do we process emotions? First of all, where do they come from? Their frequencies, right? Their energy. Where does our emotions come from? Do they come from inside of our body? Or do they come from the experiences outside of us? And the thoughts that we attach to those experiences then what? Generate our emotions, right? So if that's the case, every emotion we feel didn't come from inside of us in the beginning. We tuned into it from what happened, and then we generated the perspective in our minds and thought about it over and over again, which caused the emotion that we felt to enhance even more. If our body is a vehicle, we can experience every emotion and every thought, but we can also learn to navigate inside the body in a way that we don't become those emotions or those thoughts. And don't get me wrong, this is so very, very hard. So very hard. But I personally believe it's possible, and I've seen many different teachings that align with that perspective. And I've got my own experiences of processing emotions that have been so overwhelming. So the whole point of this conversation that I'm having now is, how do we process emotions? Or if the emotions aren't inside of us and they are an addition to the frequency that we originally came into existence in, so the natural resonance of the individual being that we are, right? Then that would suggest that these emotions and the thoughts are from external experiences. So how do you process emotions that's coming from outside? You go inside. And when you go inside, if you're still thinking about those things that cause those emotions, you continue to generate them yourself, because you have that power, because you can choose how you feel. So the power of the mind, the power of the conscious mind, the conscious awareness, right? When you bring awareness to the conscious mind, you can choose consciously what you think of. It's not easy, I know this, but it is possible. And when you can do that, you're no longer generating the emotions that you're experiencing. If creation starts from conscious awareness, God said, let there be light, and there was light. Or let's say God didn't say let there be light. Let's say God intended, thought, let there be light, and there was light. What if that thought created a sound that rippled out into light? Because the thought process wasn't material, it was a thought. That thought generates a frequency. That frequency generates movement. But for movement in physical reality, you need light. Because without the light, it can't be. Because it's in space, which is complete darkness. Planets form. Then on those planets that have their own electromagnetic field, the natural resonance of that field generates what can exist on that planet. And then things come on there. It makes sense to me why everything works perfectly in synchronicity, that it had to be consciously chosen, because it's too perfect. It wouldn't exist if it wasn't designed. What if the design itself is the design? What if once you make the intention, whatever's supposed to be for that intention to exist is what unfolds? So what if you make an intention, when you say it out loud and in your mind, and you intend it in your heart, in your being, in your energy, you've created the resonance, and you just need to sit in that resonance for it to unfold. And what if that's manifestation? To me, everything seems to be able to make sense from this perspective. The Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. The Father, the conscious mind, the Son, the physical body, the Holy Spirit, the energy within. And the thing is, everybody can feel the Holy Spirit, even if you're not Christian. You know, people can feel things around them, energy around them, other people's emotions. How can you feel other person's emotions? Because you can understand their perspective and what they're going through and how they may feel, because you can see it from their perspective, so you can experience it from their perspective, so you can feel their emotions. Not because you don't have control over that, but because you don't have control over you. This is how I see it. I don't believe empaths are susceptible to everyone's things and they have no control over it. I have the feeling of other people's things too. I've cried feeling other people's things too. But I don't see it as something I have no control or power over. I see it as something that there are times it can be overwhelming. I can't process it. But I see that as lack of connection to myself. I'm getting too wrapped up in your story rather than being connected to myself. Or I'm getting too wrapped up in the story in my head rather than being connected to myself. How can I be connected to myself if I'm not the body, the mind, or the emotions? By sitting in stillness, with silence, with no visual stimulation. Because it helps to connect to that consistent vibration, that consistent Holy Spirit energy feeling that is inside my chest. That is my connection to my God, myself, my truth. I've just been laying here for a while. Last night I got some news and it shook me a little bit, put me on a wobble. And today I woke up, my body was shaking, like I was cold, like I was shivering, but I wasn't cold. I was kind of sweaty, but not really, just a slight piece of sweat on my chest. And I laid there and I felt what was happening. And what was happening was that feeling from the day before was very present. So I sat with it and I felt it, I experienced it, and over time it slowly became easier. And then I connected to the frequency behind that, the one that I just explained to you, my heart space, my connection to whatever you want to call it. But to me, it's a connection to me. It's a connection to the frequency that I was generated from. To me, that is the frequency that was generated from the Creator to produce my experience. So my connection to God is how I see that. But I don't see God as something outside of me. Because if the Creator is not just the Creator, but it's also the experiencer and the witnesser, because everything stems from that, then everything in existence is the Creator, not just the thing behind it. That's how I look at the world. So you and me are equal to the core of our beings. Every human that is born, I believe they have good hearts, loving intentions, but the capacity for evil and the negative stuff. Why? Because human beings get wrapped up in the experience of being human. That's what I call the ego. The ego is the experiencer perspective of the individual. When you develop your awareness and you can step out of that perspective and see it from more perspectives, that's when I say you're no longer living from the ego. But I don't see the ego as something you kill. I see it as something you learn to navigate with, through, from. It shows you when you're falling out of alignment with yourself, because it gets upset, it gets triggered, it gets bothered, it thinks about things that you don't like or that you do like. It shows you things you are attached to, positive and negative. It's a tool to navigate the world with. It's a tool to navigate being human with. That's how I see it. Anyway, then after doing that and laying down and just feeling into it, and I connected to myself again, I then got another message, and then a thought process come into my head that generated what? Uncomfortable emotions again. So I got out of it and fell straight back into it. Now, you can all call me crazy, but this seems to be working for me, and it seems to be making my life a lot more beautiful, a lot more happy, a lot more peaceful. Not so much happy. Happy is an outcome of peace. I don't strive for happiness. I don't strive for love. I strive for peace. I strive for connectivity, unity, honesty, co-creation within myself, within the people around me, and within the universe around me. And that peace feels like abundance too, of all forms. So when you're living from that perspective, if you're like a magnet, are you not attracting more peace and abundance in general? More honesty, more truth, more unity, more co-creation? That's how I see it. Now, I'm not saying I'm right, but I'm saying this is my perspective of life at this point in time, and it can always adjust, and I'm always open for it to adjust. But right now, the way I'm exploring the world, it seems to be working, it seems to be helping. So I'm going to continue exploring the world like that, and I'm going to continue sharing, because if it does work for me, maybe it works for somebody else. Because if we're similar, even if we look different, we have the same process like a tree, then maybe what helps me might help you, and maybe what helps you might help me. Which is why everyone is a student and everyone is a teacher, and why I'm open to hearing other perspectives, and why whenever I share something, it's only a perspective. A lot of people, when I share things, seem to take it as though I'm telling them what's right, and it's not. I'm just saying this is what I've experienced, this is how it's impacted me and affected me, and I found it useful. So if you're interested, here you go, take a look too. And if you found anything, please share it with me, because I'd love to look at it too, see ways that I can put it into my own experience. So the original point of this conversation is, how do we process emotions and thoughts? We connect to ourselves, we connect to the energy inside of our body, the stillness inside of our body. The stillness is absence of all, but experience of all. You can feel everything, you can see everything, but you don't become it. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist anymore. It means it exists without becoming you. You embody the awareness of the creator rather than embodying the experience of the human being. And that's it. And you find ways that you can do that for yourself, whichever ways that is. And if this perspective holds any merit or accuracy, even if it's not perfect in its, metaphors and the way things actually work scientifically, the outcome of it seems to be very consistent. So there's that.